Okay, hi everybody, and good evening here from the Temple of Silence in Finland. And I'll tell you what, when it comes to your pictures on the side, please, just eliminate your video. Um, that would be the thing to do, I think, and then later we'll see about it. So, or Michael, maybe you can help with that if they. Yeah, I'm going to lift this up a little bit to be
If
heard.
people show their video, I'm going to stop their video. So it's best not to show your video at all.
Yeah, so there is some of that at the moment. So maybe check in on. I think we see um, one video, and we won't need that right now. We'll see about the work of discussion. If you want to, when you're speaking, it's another matter. Okay, well, here we are, and it is kind of, well, it's a momentous time in the battle for the soul of a nation, but also, by extension, for the soul of humanity over the dweller on the threshold of humanity. I mean, this is an ongoing battle. And we are given the hint that during the Aquarian Age, if you put two and two together, the personality of humanity will be symbolically bound for 1,000 years. We don't know how long that 1,000 years really is. It is perhaps a symbolic number. And I would say that the influence of the forces of obstruction will not subside, will not be banished from the planet entirely until the great judgment day. And that judgment day is not until the fifth round. So, there are plenty of opportunities for this battle to continue. But at the important juncture at which we find ourselves now, there can be a proper entry into the Aquarian Age, which can be an age in which the qualities of the Lords of Liberation prevail within humanity, and a newfound freedom for the members of the human race, a kind of a liberty, a realization of the fact that as spirits, we are all equal. It's a monadic thing, this equality. It has to do with our essential nature, not necessarily what we've made out of it hierarchically. Liberty, equality, and fraternity, okay, which is, again, a kind of word that we use to indicate brotherhood based on the power of Venus and Mercury together. These things will emerge. And it's better that they emerge with a fair amount of speed than that we pass through a delay in their emergence. That would be, leading to all kinds of, suffering.
You muted yourself.
Sorry. Sorry, I just noticed a few things that needed to be eliminated from my computer, and I didn't mean to eliminate myself, but that's the way it goes. Okay, so tonight, as you may have received notification, we are not only going to look at a treatise on cosmic fire, and maybe I'll, see what I can do to keep the conversation relevant to the momentous decision that is now being made. It's not so easy when you're dealing with a, profoundly academic book like A Treatise on Cosmic Fire, but there are factors which we're definitely dealing with that can be related to the condition of humanity at the moment and to the election. And then we'll have Tuya presenting the meditation on law, because let's just say this is where the battle will be for the next 2 months, the attempt to manipulate the law of the land and to disenfranchise the will of the people. The way the votes are coming in, they are mostly from certainly legitimate, but mail-in ballots. And in all cases, except maybe Arizona, they are in a high percentage for the blue candidate. If I discuss the blue and the red, you'll understand in my mind, it has always meant Jupiter and the heart center as blue, and Mars and the solar plexus center as the exoteric color of the sixth ray, exoteric red. So, sometimes rather than name names, it's a higher principle, in effect. We're trying to transfer the energy of humanity to some degree from the solar plexus to the heart. And even though that is mainly a task for the second initiation, it's a task in all the initiations leading up to the third. So that when we are preparing for humanity's first initiation, there is a transfer going on also from the solar plexus to the heart, even though the main transfer is from the sacral center to the throat. These dynamics are overlapping all the time. Now, before us is Norman Rockwell's illustrations or illustration of the four freedoms, which DK said is as much of the shambolic energy as humanity can really absorb at this time. The order maybe is different, from the order in which they are presented, because the freedoms of are usually presented before the freedoms from. But this is the way Rockwell laid it out, and it represents a high idealism. You really see in these illustrations, you really see not only the second ray, soul, but you see a high example of the sixth ray. You see the family. You see someone speaking up here on the right, obviously, and look at the man next to him, who maybe, is his father or relative or something. A few people are looking up to this person declaring something, which obviously takes some degree of courage to do so, and he is stating something with conviction, and his eyes tend to tilt upward, as is the case with many sixth-ray people when they are under the influence of their idealism. You also see, that's freedom of speech. Maybe that's the first one that's usually mentioned. And freedom of worship is in the lower left-hand corner. And again, you see a high example of the sixth ray. The sixth ray taken under the expression of the second ray. Again, people bowing their head in prayer, but also looking up, which is again the idealism of the sixth ray. The freedom from want is, the typical Thanksgiving dinner, but somehow all the kinds of things that happen in families with the children are kind of, the jokes and the humor and all the rest of it is there. But obviously the great love and dedication of looks like the grandmother and the grandfather, frankly. It's a long tradition, and it's something that people tend to look forward to, even though this year they may not be able to have so many of these gatherings because of the COVID epidemic. Nevertheless, it's a wholesome picture. And the freedom from fear, well, it's down in the lower right-hand corner. And it's very different from what Franklin Roosevelt was bringing forward. His freedom from fear focused on disarmament, so that no nation could lift up the sword against any other nation and threaten the life of the people. Well, in a way, maybe you can see the bridge. But in all of this, the great devotion of the American people is strong. Remember how many sixth-ray souls there are in the United States, a great number. And remember, too, that the majority of people at this time across the globe have either the sixth-ray personality or the third-ray personality. So we don't see much of the third ray here, but we certainly see a lot of the sixth. So this is an adapted Shambhala statement. And it's really, what we're fighting for, what we're struggling for, these particular freedoms under the Lord of Liberty, that particular Lord of Liberation, who is the Lord of Liberty. This is what we're dealing with in this idealistic illustration. I just wanted Michael to keep this up because, it is inspiring. If you've never been to the Norman Rockwell Museum, in the northern part of New York, the northwestern part of New York, I strongly recommend it for a vision of America, which for the sixth-ray types is a very good, wholesome, and idealistic vision, filled with also humor and reality. Now, excuse me. What I'd like to do, this is going to be a very mixed bag tonight, okay? Because, frankly, we are all waiting for what looks like it could be a declaration of victory. It looks like it could be for the blue, for the heart, for the second ray. Maybe not, but there will be a serious speech offered by former Vice President Biden, and it will be a bit later, but it will be offered. And for disciples such as we are, I mean, you know, everybody has their own politics. You can have what you want, okay? But it's just so obvious that if you choose the way of Jupiter, which really rules the heart center of all aspirants and disciples, and in general, of people in general, the sun giving way to Jupiter, you have to be temporarily, at least, a little relieved at the direction all of this seems to be taking. But we cannot let down our vigilance. Now, you know, that's something that I may have mentioned before. I was a great reader of the Agni Yoga books somehow. I remember when I first discovered them, and it made a huge difference in inspiration. I think maybe 45 years ago, I discovered those books. And I seem to remember quotations by Master Moria in those books. Some of them are his. Some of them the publishers have produced under his inspiration, and some of them are simply from the publishers. But certain things stand out in my mind. And one of the things that stands out in my mind is a warning from Master M saying, okay, you have survived the first arrow, you know, shot from the bow of the lords of darkness, but watch out for the second arrow. Because when you let your guard down, that's when that second arrow can eliminate you. And the Tibetan warned us in a similar way, quoting that section of the Bible, that Christian Bible that tells of the man who swept his house clean of a devil or several devils, but then turned his back and neglected the cleanliness of the house. And more devils came in and reinfested the house. And his condition then was worse than it was before. And the Tibetan specifically warns us of this. Now, you know, what is the house? It's your whole personality. And it's the personality of humanity, which maybe had been swept quite clean in a way after the Second World War. It was a great opportunity. The United Nations emerged and has survived. Remember, when the League of Nations emerged earlier, it did not survive. It was broken up and it was not sustained. The United Nations has survived, and I think it will play a very important role in the reappearance of the Christ, because we are told that the Christ will establish his headquarters somewhere. You know, obviously he's not going to say where, but I do have the feeling that it will be in proximity to the United Nations, the United Nations organization, and will have a great deal to do with using that body to help uplift humanity. And remember, that's a Scorpio organization, war and peace in a way. And will Buddhi be applied? You know, Buddhi is found on the scorpionic plane, which is the Buddhic plane. Will it be applied? Will the struggle with humanity's hydra be successful? Will the angel of the presence win? Will humanity rise by kneeling and lift the hydra up over the head into the clean, clear air of the Buddhic plane, and will illusion and glamour and Maya wilt because of the clarity of intuitive insight which can be gathered from the Buddhic plane. That is one of the things we are really, fighting for. I want to change something here. And as you know, Tuli and I have been using this particular mantra, and it has, not only do we see its importance, but it has been suggested by a number of people that, it really should be used at this point. And what I'm trying to do here is, no, I'm not succeeding. Okay, well, apparently I'm talking, but all right, it's just pictures on my side of the screen. Don't worry about it. It's not important. Day after day, we have been using this mantra. Why do we do it? We're not in the middle of a shooting war involving the whole world, but we are in the middle of an occult attack which seeks to once again come through a door behind which the agents of cosmic evil have been somewhat sealed following the Second World War. But the war was the door was left ajar, and that means, of course, that even in the short term, humanity is not safe unless there is a vigilance, because the materialism that is indicated by the Lodge of Darkness wants to come through and distort human values once again, making possible the rise of such aberrations as Nazism and fascism and a general kind of devaluation of soul values. And, you can't give even a little finger to these forces of evil. You just can't, because they'll take your whole arm, and then all of you, so to speak. So this time, our vigilance has to be adequate to the threat, as it was not, as we have been saying, during the 1930s, when such a goodwill initiative was attempted. And I'm just recapping a few things. You remember, the Tibetan basically had a think no evil, speak no evil attitude during the 30s, when there was a chance that goodwill could prevail and prevent a shooting war. Well, he changed his mind powerfully in the very late 30s and the 1940s, and he says, we, the hierarchy, have taken sides, and you must take sides too. So the writings of the 30s are different from those in the 1940s, and especially when the war of aggression began. But if the disciples, meaning not necessarily they have to be esotericists, if the disciples were vigilant enough and caring enough and focused enough on the power of goodwill at that time, then so much of the pain of the Second World War could have been avoided, and it could have been sustained, this conflict, on the psychological plane. Now that's our task now. We cannot let it precipitate. There will be a third phase, we're in it in a way, of this war, but it must be fought out through the power of thought and through a high but not blind and narrow idealism. And it must be, fought out with a clarification of the personality, an upgrading of the personality, a coming under soul influence of the personality, which is the dweller on the threshold. This is the way to fight this third battle, because it's just not going to go away. And we'll see a lot of it in the next 4 years. And who knows, gradually the negative parts of the sixth ray, I talked about the positive parts, and the negative parts of Pisces will be much in demonstration during the coming decades. But by the end of the century, DK says, they are supposed to fade out. And then by 2117, technically speaking, the age of Aquarius begins with the alignment of the vernal equinox with the 30th degree of Aquarius, however that is measured according to the master's measurements. So by that time, we're rather in the clear if we handle things correctly up to that point. Otherwise, again, delay and suffering. So we're using this first ray mantram, especially for the coming days, because phase 2, let's suppose, not jumping the gun, but let's suppose that the blue forces do prevail, and it looks like they are prevailing. Then there will be a very serious conflict during the next 2 months before Inauguration Day, and all kinds of illegitimate, unlawful methods will be attempted to take away the will of the people, to disenfranchise the voters. It will happen. And a group like ours, I'm talking about, the World Esoteric Group, has to be on guard with whatever internal methods they have to help keep the balance, keep the calm, keep the mind, keep the light in the head focused on what is happening, so that passions cannot be aroused to a terribly destructive degree by demagoguery. And we all know, of course, when Mars gets going, and, as the exoteric ruler of the sixth ray and the lower point of the solar plexus, that susceptibility to demagoguery is comes with that. It's just how it is. And guns and riots and warfare attacks. People were recently caught with dynamite in their car, or preparing that. Anyway, I think they were, going to try to take Biden out with that. The FBI is doing a good job, but already that Martian violence is rearing its head, and it has to be stopped with the deglamorization, the disillusionment, and the dispersal of Maya, and all under the focused will that aligns with the Lords of Liberation and the Christ, who is the rider from the secret place. This is why we do this meditation, to invoke the saving force of will to save, love in general, and active aid, the saving force. This is why we do the meditation. And our job, well, we don't know how long it will last, but we know that vigilance, great vigilance, will be called for until the inauguration time. If the blue prevails, then it looks like it is. Already, the Secret Service has been dispatched to Biden in greater numbers because of the threat. If he perhaps announces that, or claims some kind of victory based on the numbers. We don't know how long it will take to count every last little vote, but beyond a certain mathematical impossibility, he is justified. Perhaps when it's mathematically impossible for the other side to prevail, he is within justification of claiming victory, just as the other side claimed victory when so many millions of votes remained uncounted, if you can imagine. It's a very clear choice. But unfortunately, those who see with clarity the choice are, okay, let's say in the majority, but millions upon millions of people see only with the eyes of the selfish or fearful personality. And that, that's where our educative work comes in. So let's, in the spirit of seeing things through and bringing in solar fire into fire by friction, because this is what we have been studying. And also, to the degree possible, electric fire. It's not so very possible for people of our type, but it's becoming increasingly possible. We will focus and sound this mantra. Let the lords of liberation issue forth. Let them bring succor to the sons of men. Let the rider from the secret place come forth, and coming save. Come forth, O Mighty One. Let the souls of men awaken to the light. And may they stand with massed intent. Let the fiat of the Lord go forth. The end of woe has come. Come forth, O Mighty One. The hour of service of the saving force has now arrived. Let it be spread abroad, O Mighty One. Let light and love and power and death fulfill the purpose of the coming one. The will to save is here. The love to carry forth the work is widely spread abroad. the active aid of all who know the truth is also here. Come forth, O Mighty One, and blend these three. Construct a great defending wall. The rule of evil now must end. Now it's my hope that, and intention between Tuya and myself anyway, and I'm sure supported by the communications group and the whole Moria Federation and so many of you too, whether you're part of the Federation as a student or not, that we continue this support of the law, of the first ray of will, whether or not the opposing forces are thrown into the mix in a powerful way or an ineffective way. We cannot take the risk now of relenting in our choice to supervise and to be vigilant concerning the dangers. We cannot say, oh, what a relief. The blues were brought in, the heart and the second ray will prevail. We cannot do that because we know that phase 2 of the battle is now emerging. And we have a responsibility here. I'm looking at, how many of you have come along to our process, and I just want to say that Tuya and I and the team are very welcoming and glad you're here. Michael always helping us here, and Tuya here also with me on the other side, and Veronica and Anna and Annette and Karsten, Catherine, Cindy, and Elizabeth, Frida, Heike, and Ishtar. And just want to, just say welcome, Jem, Jesse, and Joe Waltz on the communications group team, and Joe He, and Karen, Leslie, Maka, and Martine, and Miro, and Nathalie, and Nesa, and Olivia, and Risto, and Roswitha, Sanjay Kumar, and yeah, he's down twice here, but there you are. All right, SK, good initials. And Tia, hi, and Yvonne, Carol, I guess you're together there, and Zenaidi and Karsten again, perhaps. Welcome to you all, and grateful that you are here. And if I've forgotten anybody, because it's not so easy to wield that mouse, you let me know. Now, Cosmic Fire is a very abstract book, and all I can say is that to relate that to the immediate situation. See, what page are we on, Michael? Is it 40? There it is. Fire and Manifestation, is that it?
Yes.
Page 48, yeah. It's not an easy relationship, but I thought about it. And I thought to myself, okay, I don't want to become too academic here today because such momentous things are afoot. But I want to look at the implications in the world of humanity of some of these things that we're talking about. We're continuing our consideration of the fires, electric fire, solar fire, and fire by friction. And especially this part of the book has a lot to do with fire by friction. And of course, that is the problem. Fire by friction is our foundation, but it's not our goal. And those people who make the fire by friction their goal are really moving backwards and are seeking to remain with a kind of fire or movement. Sometimes I think fire and movement are the same thing, which was developed in the previous major solar system, and the three solar systems which were not major and which preceded the last major solar system. They are, in a way, caught in the green, and we need green as the primordial ray. It's an occult factor to deal with the meaning of color and sound and music and symbol and the various spiritual numerals. Some of our recent meditations have done exactly that. Use the language of color as an evocative means, calling in the energies. We're all evolving here, and we're talking about the fires right now that are sustaining the economy of our visible solar system, says DK. We're dealing with the third ray law, the third cosmic law, the law of economy. Now, if that gets distorted, we have materialism. And if you look at the Big Dipper, or the major stars of the Great Bear, you will see that the third star, Alioth, is too low to make a nice arc into the fourth ray star. In other words, the handle of the Dipper is not exactly as it could be or should be in terms of a more perfect expression of the third ray. And so we have this incredible materialism, which is active in our solar system until our solar logos becomes a sacred solar logos, like Sirius, which it is not yet. And our little planet becomes a sacred planet. We're going to have difficulty with that third ray in general. It's very intelligent, and it produces very intelligent people, but they can evolve along the line of Mahat, which is cosmic mind only, and they can forego the indicated development of cosmic love. That's what we're facing right now, and that's what the whole battle is all about. I mean, when you start monetizing all the values of life, and you look at a person, you say, well, what are you worth? And you want to put that I mean, we do this all the time in our language. What are you worth? Oh, he was worth this much or worth that much. We monetize the value of a person or of many things. We monetize the beauties of nature around us and the spectacular things about our planet. We translate them all into a negative expression of the law of economy. We've seen this during the last 4 years, and in general, it exists. You can't blame anything on one person. It's a condition within humanity. So we're dealing with a fire that is supposed to, it's a primordial fire. It's supposed to sustain the economy of, and notice how he says, the visible solar system. There's also the invisible solar system, is there not? At least we as students of occultism believe there is. And the visible objective of the human being. We have to learn the basis which keeps us in incarnation and which keeps our planetary logos in incarnation and which keeps our solar logos in incarnation, which produce evolutionary development. These fires warm and propel us and help to drive us forward and help to stabilize our expression on the lower planes, and which are the bases, the base, of all objective efflorescence. Efflorescence, a word meaning to flower. We're all trying to flower. Now, matter of fact, man is considered to be the sevenfold plant, and it's a flowering plant, and it's sometimes called the saptaparna, which is meaning sevenfold plant, sevenfold human plant. So it must be noted that they demonstrate as the sum total of the vital life of a solar system, of a planet, and of the entire constitution of active, notice these physical vital words, of active functioning man upon the physical plane, and of the atom of substance. Now this is a key thing because, as DK said, the reason for the new schools, other than, to lead to initiation and to teach the methods of progress, is because the mind is too concrete, the astral body is too unstable, and the physical body, etheric physical body, is too weak. And all of that will be straightened out during a seventh ray age when a new form of vitality will sweep through humanity and make much more resilient etheric physical vehicles. So we will have a big improvement in the concrete expression upon the physical plane, the, should we say, the visible human being. Because, very, very shortly, because of changes in the eye and changes in the ethers will be visible. And DK tells us that people in general will be able to actually see etherically the signs that an individual has taken the first initiation. So, many changes. He told us the death blow of materialism was the development of the atomic bomb. Now, it seems a horrific thing, and it is in many ways, a horrific thing. He says somewhere that there was a severe condition of Maya, and the only way it could be called to a halt was through this explosion. and apparently broke materialism wide open. Now, we have the attempt by some of these forces which in Rule 10 and in the meditation of Rule 10, they seek to mend the rent which has been made in the veils of Maya. Christ made the largest tear in the veils of Maya when the veil of the temple was ripped in two from the top to the bottom. Okay. And St. Paul, he made a rent, a smaller one, having to do with the first ray, because that is finally his monadic ray. And Moses, the lawgiver, also contributed to a rent in the veils of Maya, delivering the law as he did. But the evil forces seek to creep in there and, sort of restitch the whole thing so that the higher energies can't get through. Now, that's one of the things I thought about. We're in a situation where the etheric body is about ready to become the main physical body. And probably in the next solar system, I mean, you have to wonder whether there will be any dense physicality at all. And even at a later point in this solar system, the dense physicality may disappear, and the true physical body may be deemed as the etheric body. But the question for us is humanity's consciousness captivated by gross myopic illusion, or is it beginning to penetrate into true etheric physicality, radiant fire, not the latent fire that warms the physical body in its densest aspect, but beginning to penetrate into the ethers. And with enough subtlety of cultivation and the changes taking place on the etheric plane, the etheric body will become the vehicle through which the higher energies can get through. Well, you have the forces of darkness doing everything they can to make sure that the tears, the rents in the veils of Maya prevent the higher forces from coming through. And if the Lodge of Materialism has its way, then we will not have access to soul energies, to intuitive energies, to the energies of the highest will, all those things that the masters and the Christ can contact so easily because of their achievement. We will not have access to that if the normal consciousness is captivated by dense physicality. So right now we're fighting with materialism. We're dealing with the activity of matter. Okay, we can do it intelligently or not. We're dealing with the rotary motion of matter. This is all having to do with the first fire. And the development of matter by means of friction, because it's a pretty crude thing, but when you rub up against somebody, something rubs off, and at least you become a little more sensitive through friction and combat. It's not the best way necessarily, but it's an early way of finding out who's out there. If you just keep spinning in your own rotary motion and never touch any other spinner, then you're just not going to know of what they consist. So fire by friction is developmental eventually. All of this taking place under the law of economy. He has something here from the Secret Doctrine. Okay, he's got a bunch of pages. Well, so there's nothing inherently wrong with this primordial ray. It's just too long an emphasis upon it. We hear about evil, and this is the quote, is pretty close, I think. It's the good that should have been outlived. In other words, it was appropriate to an earlier time, but because of fear and many other factors, fear and egotism and blinded vision, you stick with that from which you should have moved on. And everything in the automatic congestion that we call the dense area, the dense physical body of the human being, or even the dense physical body of the planetary logos, which is our personality realm, we cannot become fixated there. Now, these forces of negativity, just think of it, how they, to use the example, how they promote pollution. You can't breathe. You can't see the sun. You can't, your health is going down because of all of the particulates that you're taking into your body. It is a health-destroying tendency within the materialistic attitude. But who cares? You make money, okay? It's considered worthwhile. You can go to Yosemite National Park, and maybe you should destroy El Capitan, that great rock that people climb, because somehow it would make you'd have good materials for a stone quarry or something. You see, the beauties of nature, the loveliness, the wonder, the different forms of life. Who cares if they go extinct? It's not our concern. Okay, what's in a fish? What's in a bird? Why do we care? Why do we care about the other kingdoms at all? We have to have this symbol which is monetizing everything of value and real value. So we've seen tendencies towards a reversion to that attitude. And we know there is a certain group of people working under the materialistic forces that are animated by greed and by acquisitiveness and by the comfort and superiority which accumulating the symbol that we call money will give them, regardless of whether there are thousands of young kids out on the garbage heaps looking to see whether their family will eat today or not. It's absolutely unfair. And and what DK said about this, and this I can quote word for word: capitalism has emerged and wrecked the world. Now, what a statement that is, okay? He means it, of course. I mean, this has nothing to do with the fact that a medium of exchange can be useful. It's just the abuse of it under the Hydra head of the wrong use of money. Capitalism has emerged and wrecked the world. I mean, those are very, very strong words. Now, we are witnessing this thus far in the United States and in other advanced countries. There is a group that works for the accumulation of the power of this symbol, which is supposed to symbolize prana, but instead it symbolizes the fulfillment of desire. I think it's incorrect to say that money is the root of all evil. Incorrect to say, well, maybe more correct to say the love of money is the root of all evil, but still more correct to say the love of desire, which money can fulfill, is the root of all evil. And when low desire from the lower part of the solar plexus is ruling the behavior of humanity, there will be nothing but division and cacophony and dissonance and disharmony and friction, all the division. And then we will fall under the great heresy of separateness, which is the one great heresy. Students of our type, we have to learn how to put things together, see things together, see things in unity and in love, under the influence of the second fire, using the fire by friction as a primordial basis, but we have to use the green to enhance the blue. And it's probably the indigo blue. The second fire, that from the cosmic mental plane, think about where that comes from. How can we even conceive it? Is it vibratory? What is it? We don't know, except the Tibetan has given us a few maps. So this second fire, those two stars in the 2 points in the pentagram, the expression of the evolution of mind, or manas, the linking principle, right? It's the vitality of the soul and not the vitality of within the dense physical body of the planetary logos. So once we start going up into the cosmic planes, we're not dealing anymore with the dense physical body of the solar logos, or planetary logos, either the lower 18 subplanes or the lower 21 subplanes for the solar logos. The evolutionary expression of the soul as it shows forth in the form of that elusive something which brings about the synthesis of matter. When a word won't do, DK pretty much says something. That's something, and then we have to try to find out what it is. And this is our task. As the two fires merge by means of this active energizing factor, that which is termed consciousness appears, and especially self-consciousness. As the merging proceeds and the fires become more and more synthesized, that totality of manifestation which we regard as a conscious existence, someone awakening to themselves, not just as a part of nature and not knowing that they exist in some individual manner, okay? That which is termed consciousness appears, and as the merging continues, that totality of manifestation which we regard as a conscious existence becomes ever more perfected. And then, I'm not going to go very far here now. The operation of this fire under the law of attraction, which is the law we have to cultivate now. And all these things, the second fire from the cosmic mental plane deals with, and the subsequent result in the spiral cyclic movement, which we call within the system solar evolution, but which from the standpoint of the cosmos is the approximation of our system to a central point. What is that central point? That central point is probably the Pleiades. There are other central points. The star Sirius is important, and there may be a cycle there in relation to our solar system. The star Vega is important, and there may be a cycle there. But finally, it is the Pleiades themselves, about 410 light years from our particular system. So all of this must be considered from the standpoint of time. Spiral cyclic evolution from the standpoint of time. Now, let's see what we got here. There's a footnote. Universal consciousness manifesting as consciousness in time and space, as Mrs. Besant so ably expresses it, includes all form of activity and spiral cyclic evolution from the standpoint of cosmic evolution and in terms of absolute consciousness, may again be rotary. Okay, well, that's quite a statement. I don't think we can, fully get into that, but let's just say that there is rotary motion on one level and a type of rotary motion on still greater levels. So even our higher types of motion may be subsumed in a type of rotary motion, which is the lowest type of motion for a greater being, and on it goes. But let's, sticking to the facts, we want humanity to progress. As long as human beings are materialists and absorbed in the third fire and have no idea about the reality of the inner worlds, there will be repetition, the building of walls, the emphasis upon the heresy of separateness. There will be no real progression. So basically, what this, to go from all of this into the election, okay, it's a big jump, but this is all about, will humanity progress along the spiral cyclic mode of progress, or will it simply keep on rotating separatistically as it has for millions of years? And these decision points are all part of the great emergence of the fifth kingdom of nature with the reappearance of the Christ. Will we succeed in opening that door to the fifth kingdom of nature, so that the kingdom of souls can indeed manifest upon the earth? Now, with all of the materialism and the greed and the selfishness and the separatism, the kingdom of God is not going to materialize upon the earth. Certain of these tendencies have to be destroyed by the will of the people. And we are seeing the will of the people, hopefully now advancing, so that a little victory for the soul is emerging, which may turn out to be a very big victory. That is what we are witnessing. Now, I'm not going to deal right now with the evolution of the spirit, okay? We just say, there are three types of motion, and we are trying at this point to cultivate the second type of motion built upon the primordial motion, which is rotary. We are building the blue upon the green. He says those are really the only two colors of which we can be esoterically certain. We're building the blue upon the green. And we are building the divine ray upon the primordial ray. And it's not just a solar systemic thing. It's not just a planetary thing. It's exactly what you are doing in your own individual system. You are building the blue divine ray upon the green primordial ray. And you're building spiral cyclic motion upon rotary motion. And now, next time we talk, we'll get into this question of progress. You know, when you look at the political scene, you see that progress is not just a straight line. Sometimes politics has been called the art of the possible. And right now, we're looking at the situation to see what will be possible with divided government and checks and balances, but at least the will of the many is honored through the checks and balances system. And DK says, well, it prevents unnatural haste, too much progressivism driving forward in too straight a line, leaving others behind. He tells us that if the disciples were to really rule all aspects of government, it would cause a cleavage between the average non-aspiring people and these disciples, which is exactly the opposite of what the hierarchy hopes for in bringing them more and more together and into harmony. Okay, well now,
Michael,
yes, Michael.
there is a footnote 15 at the end of the second line of C, which is a long discussion by Annie Besant on consciousness.
Yeah, it is long. So I'll tell you what, we're going to take that up later. I think we must not. This is a highly philosophical footnote, and it uses the Hindu terms and some other terms, and I think it's more for later. So just remind us later when we take this up again, Michael, that we will look at that. So basically, okay, what I'm going to do right now, just keep track here for me. We're going to just call it at this point. Tui is getting ready to give the meditation, but in the next 15 minutes or so, because that's when I told people they could join the meditation at 7:30 GMT. Until that time, maybe there are some thoughts or questions based upon what I've been saying or what the current situation may be. Anything you'd like to bring forward for the next 15 minutes or so. If there are any hands or statements or, writings, whatever they may be. Is there anything?
I am looking for hands raised and comments or questions written in the chat box. Nothing at this point yet.
I suppose that for many of us who are American and for others who have a global consciousness and realize the implications here of this particular election, that's what our mind is on. Oh, here's Yvonne. Looks like she would like to speak. And you can do that. Michael can unmute you, Yvonne. Or maybe you can unmute yourself. I don't know.
Can you hear me?
You bet. Loud
okay.
clear.
I did write you a little note, Michael, before I came down. I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Oh. Okay.
Okay, and they said that we still have 70,000 votes that still need to be counted, most of them coming from the eastern part around Philadelphia, and all the ones in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Allegheny County, all the absentee ballots or the that were mailed in were not allowed to be counted till 7 o'clock this morning. That's why that's running late. So
Yeah, that is so interesting that basically the law of the states, different laws are various in the various states, and they have to adhere to them, no time to change them, no exceptions, and that's the reason for the prolonged count. But it does seem to the analysts that since the Blues were encouraged to vote early and by mail, that many of them are running rather higher than 50%, maybe 60, 70% on the side of the Blues. So in that case, it could be promising for those who prefer second-ray Jupiter at this point in human development over ancient Mars and its battles. So, you know, we're watching closely. There are different news feeds that give us what we I tell you what, I find, of course, maybe it's just my prejudice or bias, but I find that there is a lot of really good analysis going on CNN with Wolf Blitzer and John King and who is that excellent commentator? Oh, golly. He's dealing with Dana Bash on one side and that, you know, I can't think, but anyway, I know his name, but there, you know, there it is. And it's so intelligent and sometimes humorous, but basically humanitarian in its approach.
yes, CNN is where I'm getting my information. And these votes that are coming in, the ballots that they're counting, have been like 70 or 80% for Biden so far.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's even a better figure than I was quoting. It will be a victory for the soul of this nation if the blue force wins. And it looks like it's on its way. Now, of course, all of the obstructive nonsense is going to be thrown into the pot, and that's where we, with our vigilance, have to persist. We have to do what we can do. We're just small little people, but, you know, together as a group and using esoteric methods, we can count for something. And we will persist. It's really been, you begin to see, don't you, why there was an attempt basically to mess up the mail delivery system. It was a very shrewd move to basically delay the arrival of ballots and to make, you know, delivery questionable and to open the thought that there must be corruption because there is delay. You understand the manipulation that went into this. And well, anyway,
Yes,
things are moving.
yeah, each state has different rules as when they start to count the ballots, and the military ballots from people overseas haven't come in yet. I think they're supposed to be in by 5, and they have till next Tuesday to come in. So
yes, we kind of wonder how long this can drag on, but I think that if there is an understanding of whether that would make a material difference in the outcome, they will have to wait before declaring any kind of final victory, whomever would declare it. But, you know, let's see. That's what John King keeps on saying. He's a brilliant man, and he really has the math down superbly. Okay, thank you, Yvonne. You're in a hot spot there. You know, you're in a place of consequence. So make sure they vote correctly, right, Yvonne? Okay, thank you.
Joe Garceau has written, I celebrate the vote of the youth of America, a very large vote indicating their involvement.
Indeed, indeed. And some people, are really, you know how it's possible for young people to say, well, my vote doesn't make any difference. And I've talked to people also who said, I never voted in my life before this time. I've talked to people also who say, I never voted in my life, including this time. It seems a sad thing to me when so many people have fought and died for the will of the people. But, we learn the hard way so often. But yes, indeed, let us celebrate that the youth is coming out. And they have a few things in mind, don't they? I would say over the next decades. I wonder if we'll recognize our government by the time they are in full power. Thanks, Joe. What else? Anything? Excuse me.
Okay, I'm looking here, and Jesse has written, a state appeals court in Pennsylvania has ordered the Secretary of State to notify all local election officials that they must set aside provisional ballots that were cast by voters as a way to fix problems with their mail-in ballots. The court will later decide whether those votes can be counted. The issue is the practice of letting mail-in voters fix problems on their ballots, or instead cast provisional ballots to solve the problems.
Yeah.
Republicans say state law does not allow that. Democrats say while state law doesn't explicitly provide for the practice, it doesn't prohibit it either.
Yeah. And these will be determinations made by people who have biases and prejudices. And, I was amused when the current nominee, well, now member of the Supreme Court, said, I would never let my personal preferences interfere with my judgment. And I just don't know a single human being who can say that with a straight face. Because, basically what psychology has taught us over the last over the last 100 of years or more is that we are constantly motivated by our unconscious biases and prejudices and orientations, and we don't even know it. So, to say I have complete control over the discrimination between my legal judgment and my personal preferences is to me an unrealistic position. But okay, live and learn, and people will live and they will learn. Thanks, Jesse, for those details, and we'll just see, right? Maybe it won't be necessary. Maybe those provisional ballots, they should be counted, but maybe even if they were counted, it wouldn't make a difference. Let's see. Everything will be tried. I'm sorry, Michael. Everything will be tried. Every possible obstacle will be thrown up. And that's why we call these inspirers of such behavior lords of obstruction, the forces of obstruction. That's why we call them that. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Michael.
Anna has written, to expand onto the spiral higher than our orbit, we must become radioactive. Let our fire shine and see the world more abundantly. So the point of gravity shifts to the soul from the body. The fire of the mind, we magnetize the light of Buddhi and enter the spiritual kingdom.
Yeah, it sounds, like just the kind of progression that we have to make. And basically, it's all about one's point of tension. The point of tension held or sustained or relinquished or improved in our consciousness. And, it's one thing to achieve a certain point of tension fleetingly, and then it subsides, like elastic back to the old position. And it's another thing to be able to sustain a new point of tension after repeated attempts and the training of the consciousness to work at that point of tension. And some of what you might call our orbit is taken care of by the driving force of spirit. We're going to get into that. But if you, there's always a higher orbit when we're dealing with spiral cyclic motion. And when the energy of progress onward, or what's called driving forward through space, is applied to rotary motion, then the orbits continue to be elevated or continue to take in new possibilities. There are widening spirals, there are converging spirals. In any case, the spiral would not even exist unless the driving forward through space of the first ray did exist. So the main thing is, when you look at yourself or any of us, are we living at a higher point of tension consistently than we lived at before? And are we able to sustain that point of tension? That's the question. And, let's try to be honest about it. How fast do we fall back into the green when we should be achieving a point of tension within the blue? And it's so interesting, isn't it, that the exterior of our planet, we call it a blue-green planet. Now, there's also the desert areas and the ice areas, but Master Moria says that every desert represents an offense. What offenses or violations of the law or violations of the good produced the desert? I found that to be, an interesting idea, that deserts should not really exist, and that because of human mismanagement, human sin, human offense, they do exist. So it's interesting to consider that mankind may be responsible for the arid areas that exist now, and which eventually may become unlivable, so hot, they almost are right now. Whole areas of our earth may become unlivable because of the climate change and the, possibly the initiation of the planet. And that these areas have become that way largely through human, human sin. I guess I can put it that way. So let us live at a higher point of tension, and let us be able to recognize that we are, and let us have reasons for being able to say that we do live at a higher point of tension, and not just assume it to be so, but see it to be so. Always living on a higher point, a higher turn of the spiral, in a way, a higher existential orbit, to use, your words, orbit.
Next, Karsten has written, in North Denmark, the government says that the COVID virus mutated to mink, with 12 people infected. They say it can affect the vaccines for the virus, so now they closed and killed all the animals on these farms in Denmark, and they closed the bridges and tunnels to the area.
Yes, I've heard of this, and some real difficult decisions have to be made with regard to the animal kingdom and also to the human kingdom. It is, how this, I think only finally real human cooperation and real respect for what is happening to the health of the human family will bring this to a manageable stage. There are various animals that can become hosts to the virus, and maybe it even originated in them. I have a friend who's a veterinarian, and there's a special term for the jumping of such viruses from animal to human. And it's a very real phenomenon that they do study in their veterinary work. He's been a veterinary researcher his whole life, and he says it is it's definitely a factor. So yes, we have to, we don't know yet, do we, exactly how this virus works. We suspect that it's part of one of those what is called universal epidemic that was planned by Sanat Kumara. And if you look up those words, you will find them on the Alice Bailey CD-ROM, and you'll see why it is they were, what they really mean in the context of human evolution. But still, we have so much to learn. There's something self-destructive about humanity. We know that the legend goes that if a scorpion, that's humanity's sign, cannot find something to sting, it will sting itself to death. And sometimes, that's self-destructive, suicidal behavior. And I sometimes, when I see the way human beings are reacting to this COVID virus, I think we are in that some people are being swept by a self-destructive intention. So we have to be very careful how we handle the sign Scorpio. I was thinking about Dr. Fauci. Now, one of the more extreme right-wing types says not only shall we decapitate Dr. Fauci, but we will decapitate the head of the FBI, who is an honorable man, and we will put their head upon a pike and, to warn others not to do as they have done. Well, when those kinds of thoughts are being let loose into the public arena, we know that something severe is going on the inner side of things. This is not going to be pleasant, and it is very Plutonic, as we would expect Pluto to be active before the Christ can reappear. Now we're getting to the point when we invited the other folks in who may not have been part of this. I don't know if more may be arriving, I'm not sure. How many more statements do we have, Michael?
We have a comment from Sanjay and from Jem. Sanjay identified the transmission of virus between human and animal or vice versa as zoonotic origin.
That sounds right.
And Jem writes, it will be interesting to see how a Biden win will affect the current political situation in the UK. And then there's a couple more that have come in. But, it's half past the hour, or a little past half past the hour. So I'm not sure how much longer you want to
We're getting there. Okay. And this was from Maka, right? And one of these.
The one from Maka is the most recent. Writing.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Oh, okay, and someone did say, Jesse said that the Twitter has permanently suspended the man, Steve Bannon, his account after his talk of beheading, violent beheading, obviously. Okay, let's see. And my answer to Tuya is yes. But what is the question? Yes, I can.
That was her writing to me.
Oh, is that it? Okay. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Okay, sometimes I forget. No,
I was writing both of you.
I forget which Michael I am, you know what I mean? And then finally, Maka, go ahead and read it, Michael.
Maka writes, I agree that the virus has a connection to Sanat Kumara. It seems its effect is most tangible in the mental and astral plane, delusion and illusion. Its effect is most minimally seen in the physical kingdom, owing to the lower than projected mortality rate.
Okay, let's see about that. And what Dr. Fauci seems to suggest is that, let's say, the United States, particularly as the greatest offender, is in a very unfavorable position with respect to possible mortality rates in the coming autumn and winter months. So let us see whether the extent to which he is correct. He warns against a lot of mortality, and the mental and astral plane are certainly involved here, and we have to straighten out our attitude towards the virus's effect on those planes. And we are attempting to deglamorize and make less illusion prone the mental plane. So it's something that remains to be seen, I would say. And yes, Senator Kumara, for his own good reasons, he would not permit this if it did not have its purpose. But as to what we can actually understand, that's another matter. And of course, what Sanjay is saying here, that there are many turmoils in the personal life, and they are related to world transition. Of course they are. Of course they are. And but they're also related to being a disciple in a world in transition, and a world, our planet, our planetary logos, taking a fourth type of initiation through our planetary chain and planetary globe, through our globe and through our chain. And we know it's the most difficult of the initiations in one way, and deeply filled with suffering and a rejection by humanity of the disciples. So one may feel thrown out of humanity as one reaches that point. Now, we're not at that point, okay? We wouldn't be fourth degree initiates sitting here and talking about this kind of thing. But it is the fate of the disciple to experience turmoil until this is mastered somewhat at the illumination, the third degree, and then later in a very deliberate and willful way under the regime of the monad, the fourth initiation, with its great renunciation, has to be experienced a very, very demanding process. The two are interrelated. We are not different from the world. Okay, now, Tuya, maybe I can turn this over to you.
We want to stop this recording before
Okay,
so.
I'll stop it and then start it again, right? Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording and what, dear? No, I have to stop.
Let me share my screen first before you start the.
No, wait. I'm going to stop this recording.
Right.
It won't get rid of my screen. It will just stop the recording.
Right.
Okay,
And
so
then
I'm going to start the recording again.
Let Tuya share her screen before starting the recording again.
Do you think that is wise?
Yes.
Okay, I will defer to your technical expertise. All right. Because then it's going to be on the tail end, of course.
Stop the recording.
Oh. And now let's stop the recording here with the square, right?
Yes.
With the square down at the bottom. Do I want to stop the recording? I do.